Welcome to Pam and the Purple Couch Podcast, hosted by Pamela Furr, with our co-hosts Dr. Manny Rodriguez, Missy Owen, and Loki DePristo. Together, we're going to dive deep into topics such as education, neurodiversity, autism, and applied behavioral analysis. Remember to click subscribe today so you don't miss out on any future episodes.
Hi, friends and family, and welcome back to the Purple Couch Podcast. So, we're going to talk about picky eaters today. And guess what? I'm a picky eater. Loki.
Yeah.
We're picky
I am too,
eaters.
I gotta say.
You are too?
Yeah, for sure.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, this
All
is
of
going
us.
to be great. So, picky eaters, our kids. How do we get them to eat the green vegetables? How do we get them to try new foods?
How do we get them to step out of their comfort zone, but in the terms of food?
Yes,
Mhm.
that's exactly it. And trying new textures, trying new taste. The biggest thing that in our family, I can't really help you all on this one because I was a mom that made 3 different meals,
Yeah.
you know? So I made a meal for what the group would eat. I made a meal for what Loki would eat. And then I would pick pretty much because by the time I would sit down and eat, I'd already picked while I was making everybody else's
So
food.
you weren't a picky eater, you were a picky cook.
Yeah, there you go.
I think it
But
changed
you
it
know,
up.
this whole term, I like that we're doing this episode because I struggle with picky eaters. Like, what is that? So I thought that would be a good way for us to start. It's like,
Yes.
what is a picky eater? How do we define it? And
Mhm.
to preface it, Missy and I were talking about it before the podcast, and she had a good definition for it. So I thought I'm going to punt it to her and say, what is
Thank
the
you.
definition of a picky eater?
Yeah, so I think what we came up with is that a picky eater is just the refusal to try new food, a refusal to try something, whether it's based on how it looks, how it smells, how it tastes, the texture of it.
Yeah.
Which I'd probably say most people, it does seem to be more of a texture type thing. Like I know myself specifically, meatloaf. I love how it smells. I love how it tastes, but that texture, it's awful. It is so awful. I can't do it. But it's awful because my husband and my daughter, they both love it. I
Gotcha.
would love to make it, but I can't. I want to throw up. No.
And see
no.
here, I think it's a great example and so why does that make her a picky eater?
Yes.
And in what context? And who determines that, right? So
Yeah.
like, that's why I struggle with this whole notion of you're a picky eater because I'm a picky eater. There's things I don't
Okay.
like to eat.
So
what-
maybe,
what
Manny,
defines the picky eater?
we look at picky eaters like some of our clinical kids that
Mhm.
have failure to thrive and
Yeah, that
simply
extreme.
will not eat. Okay, so now we're talking about picky eater versus a food program that needs to be put into place
For
because the
medical
child
necessity.
is not thriving because they're not eating.
So
Yeah.
tying the ABA side of this, right? So the definition we're talking about is refusal to eat,
Mhm.
but then
Yes.
underscore with social significance of what we are saying they must eat. So there's a nutrition aspect.
Okay,
There's
yes.
a medical need for it. There's some reason that substance, that food
Mhm.
is needed versus the meatloaf is not necessary. She can get her
Exactly.
nutrients some
Correct.
other way.
Yeah.
You found a very
yes.
a different way to feed your family that didn't require you to force,
Correct.
Mhm.
quote unquote force, right? So it wasn't necessarily that we were a bunch of picky eaters. It was that we had preferences.
Oh, I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important because a lot of our families get locked in this.
Mhm.
My kid's a picky eater.
Mhm.
Well, tell me more. Well, they won't eat what I want them to eat.
Correct.
Let's stop there.
Yes.
Is it needed for them?
Yeah.
Like, is it a medical
Correct.
necessity for them to eat the
Mhm.
broccoli? I know it's supposed to be, but
Mhm.
Missy actually brought up the fact that the pyramid thing is.
Oh,
the food pyramid.
100. Well, we send all those reels back and forth to each
Oh,
other.
yeah.
You're not in our
Wait.
it's a female
No.
vibe
That's
thing.
a good one.
Yeah.
Hold on.
You-
So what about the food pyramid?
Oh, it's complete.
It's all fake.
It's awful. It was made by the companies who produce wheat to try to get us to buy
Yep.
more wheat, so we would eat more. But none of it's based on nutrition or actual medical
Uh-huh.
backing.
debunked.
So
Yeah.
Boom.
so
Loki.
so
Brain
what
blown.
okay, well no, you don't even have to say that, but I was more so
Oh
just
man, I
saying
was
like
trying to get it.
what about
Tried.
so Okay, so the pyramid, what about the plate? Is the plate made by the same people?
Oh, the plate, that's that you're supposed to have like the
Certain.
Exactly.
sections.
Yeah.
Safe to assume, I think too, like all things in life, it's going to vary. Like what I need is going to vary based
Correct.
different from what you need to you.
You know,
to you. So
when Loki went to the pediatrician, and I hate to do this because I love our doctors. Don't get me wrong. We all need our doctors, but I think there's a lot of misleading information
Yes.
when we go to the doctor's office. So I'm a huge
Mostly about
advocate.
portions.
Yes. Well, I'm an advocate of biomedical treatment. I am a true advocate of healing the body and not just doing pharmaceutical treatment to cover it up. And the reason I'm going to say that, and I preview that, because this again comes to personal preference. We, number one, want to make sure that the nutrition and health of the child is taken care of. So as long as we're setting that precedent that the child is medically in a right physical place that they can be when we're talking about nutrition, okay?
Mhm.
But that varies per child.
Yeah.
Just like our developmental times, that also varies per child.
Yeah.
That's why we have different body styles.
Yeah.
So I can tell you, Loki and I both do not break down the protein in milk. Neither one of us do. So any type of ice cream or any type of soft cheese, things along those lines will set our digestive system off.
Oh.
Okay. Now, it's funny because there are then texture things. Like Loki has not had raw milk, meaning, whole milk or anything like that since, oh my goodness, you were less than 1 when we tried to do the bottle switch.
Yeah.
We found out, and he ended up projectile vomiting just like I did.
Yeah.
It becomes like a cottage cheese matter, and that's how the body digests. Well, the reason I bring this up is because I'm sure because a lot of our neurodivergent children have the same type of intolerances, not food allergies, but they build up in the body. So if they eat a lot of gluten, it's not that the bread will kill them like celiac disease, but that yeast builds up in their gut and goes to the pituitary gland. Okay. Same thing with milk, same thing. It could be peanuts. It depends on the child. But the struggle we had going into the pediatrician's office, and I think this is where the picky eaters comes from. I would have to literally stand my ground to the nurse practitioner, not even the doctor. How many glasses of milk is Loki drinking a day? And I'm like, he doesn't drink milk. Well, how is he getting his vitamin D? I'm like, well, I can go outside and get 4 hours of sunshine and get more vitamin D than drinking 12 glasses of milk. There's other substitutes that we can do, but I think our medical staff need to truly take the understanding that there's not just one way.
Right.
Yeah.
Because in that example, it's the vitamin D is what's necessary.
Yes, not the milk.
Milk.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So in those cases, like you said, I mean, there's so many vitamins out there too, but then you always have to look at what's in this vitamin.
Oh.
They have all the extra stuff thrown into there. It's
Oh,
like,
my
you can't
goodness.
trust anything. Nothing is safe.
yes,
Yeah, to go outside in the sun. That's
correct.
it's about as natural.
Correct.
As you
Well,
can
we're
get.
growing our own food. And I know you're hearing
I
this
need to start
lot.
doing that.
Nowadays, we are all concerned about the contaminants. We're all reading labels. And I'm
It's
going back
scary.
when my sister and I were growing up. This was not something we even thought about. You didn't hear about this, and you can watch all the reels on social media. Us Gen Xers are going, we didn't have celiacs. We didn't have peanut allergies.
Yeah.
We didn't have this thing.
We didn't have allergies. Yeah, we just simply tanked it through. Yeah, sickness, what's that? I'm
Hey,
just
our
going to puke in
parents
the
bring a
toilet.
little Windex and out the door you went,
Yeah.
know?
I'm still living past the age of my ancestors, so we're doing pretty good.
Correct.
Getting
But I think we have to go into understanding everyone's body is different. Every child's nutritional needs are going to be different. And we need to make sure that based on their body, that the child is getting what they need.
Yeah.
I can tell you, even in my own family, I've got my grandmother for a woman was, 5'9". Here I am 5 foot. Well, she can metabolize a lot different food systems than what I can. And 5 pounds, 10 pounds on a short girl versus 10 pounds on a 5'8" person is completely night and day difference. The other thing that I want to talk about as we're talking about picky eaters is everybody's body style is going to be different. So a lot of times we see siblings being compared to each other.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We have, brothers, even here in our high school, siblings down at, the elementary school, and one has no problem eating vegetables and fruit, and the other one's like, no, I only eat chicken nuggets and French fries and tater tots. You get what I'm saying? And there's nothing else that comes behind them. So then in those cases, we have to find ways of supplementing.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to pull a tool out of my toolbox. And Loki, I don't know if we've ever discussed this, so I may be busted in this episode on the podcast,
Yeah.
but you loved quesadillas. Do you
Yes.
remember your quesadillas?
Yes.
So, Loki, to rephrase, if we were to go back 10 years ago, was that picky eater. And picky because he had his own preferences.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, you were also like that
Oh,
still.
I still am.
Yeah.
I think you and I both have about 15 food items
Yeah.
we eat,
Yeah.
and we can repeat those. And they
And
look
you're happy to.
And we were happy.
100%, yes.
And we were happy.
But I was also a young mom, and I did everything the doctor told me to. And, you had the food pyramid then. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, he's not getting all the vegetables he needs to because
Yeah,
he
you
won't
have
eat
to-
anything.
Yeah, you have to do the whole thing of like, oh yeah, you gotta make sure that this is supplementary.
Yes.
15 ounces of green beans down your throat. Go,
Oh,
go.
bingo.
Yeah.
So what we found was if you got powdered vegetables, you could put them easily within the cheese of the quesadilla.
That's a good
Oh.
one.
You see, I'm getting busted here.
It's
I'm
this
getting
part.
I'm gonna
busted.
start
Yes.
doing that.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. You can take freeze-dried vegetables. You can take
Yeah.
dehydrated vegetables, put them in your coffee grinder, and then sprinkle them in. Hold on, I know, but I can tell you this. Do not
Uh-huh.
get busted.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
if your kids see you doing this, parents, they will never eat another quesadilla from you at all. You also, the reason I say powdered, I
Mhm.
tried mushrooms in a quesadilla with Loki. Do you
The
see the face?
texture.
Oh,
So that's when I found putting it in the
Imagine-
grinder,
listen,
the coffee grinder.
Listen. Steak and quesadillas is fine, okay? Steak and quesadillas is fine because they're
Yeah.
squishy. Cheese is squishy. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you put mushrooms or any type of vegetable that has
So-
any type of like solidarity to it, you bite into it once and you go,
Mhm.
oh.
yeah.
And you, like every sensor goes off and you immediately put it back on the table like, what happened? Did I break a tooth? Like,
I feel that way with marinara sauce when it has the chunks in it.
Yes.
Ah.
Oh, but you see, that's a sensory thing for
Yeah.
you. That is a sensory
on the topic
thing.
of sensory things, hold on. Sorry, I don't know if you were going to go more into the quesadilla thing, but a thing that also triggers me, orange juice with pulp
Oh
in it.
no! Yes, I don't understand how anyone can drink it. No.
People who do not have sensitive gums, I guess.
Yes, yes.
When you feel
It's
it
like it's
running
stuck on
through your
tongue.
teeth,
Yes.
and then when you feel it also in your throat when it's not fully going
and then you see it on
down.
the edge of the glass.
So
like,
it's
Oh, now
not
Yeah,
even
I'm with
not
you.
even in the edge of the glass. You just like it's like
looking at it.
it's like you don't even see it at the edge of the glass. It's more so like you just see it swimming in there, and you know that's going to be in your
Yeah.
throat. And
Yeah.
so when you drink it and it's gone, it's like, oh my god, I drank that.
Uh-huh.
So,
With you on that one.
Manny,
With you on that one.
we just got a really good dive into the vocal expressive language that some of our kids may not have.
Yeah.
So if you've ever wondered why your kid won't eat something, well, we've got adults here on the couch that have really done a great job using wonderful adjectives that we could really feel. I mean, this was just orange juice.
Yeah.
So
And
my
they're very
trigger
expressive.
is yogurt.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness.
That's my husband.
I can't. I can't even watch people eat yogurt.
Mhm.
It is something that for me, like when you were talking about the pulp, yogurt, the texture instantly, and I don't know, I think this is a teacher thing, if it's years of working with children, because, I'm a huge George Carlin fan. I just got to give credit where credit's due, and maybe it's the Gen X generation. But yeah, I've wiped enough mouths and boogers and noses.
Oh.
You get where I'm going with that? That just
Yeah.
yogurt to me is not something that looks anything. Even when Pat is cooking dinner and I'm like, "Are you putting sour cream in our food somewhere?" I'm like, "Please don't put it in anywhere." And he's like, "You wouldn't even know it's in there. It's a seasoning. It's a mix. It's
Well, you saying that will
Ugh.
eventually trigger your mouth into tricking like the sauerkraut is a much bigger deal than it already is.
oh, Did you just hear that?
Sauerkraut, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not thinking. I'm thinking
Under
about
your mind.
the mind. I'm like,
That's good point.
Loki, drop
Because
some wisdom down on
if
us.
you say, oh yeah, no, it has green beans in it, your mind is gonna be focusing on the green beans and try to figure out where the green beans is. Because if you give me a normal quesadilla and say there's green beans in it, and I take a bite, I'm gonna be constantly searching like, okay, where's the green beans? Like, because you constantly expect it, and then once you realize, oh yeah, no, wait, there were no green beans. I was just with you, so you just sort of go like, oh, well, now just the quesadilla just tastes bad.
Now I'm
Look,
done.
that's why it's taking 10, 15 years for you to find out mommy's secret in your quesadillas. Now, what
Happen
he's
next
going
time
to
you
do
need to get home.
is he's going to be looking at the quesadilla at home next time, be like, no, I ordered this one. I DoorDashed.
Wait, no, you've been doing it like to this
No,
day.
not as an adult.
No. I'm like, wait, you haven't given me a quesadilla at all anyway. So it's like, well, when
Since
have
you've been an adult, right?
When have you been doing it?
So no, just as a kid. When we finally got to the pediatrician sign that, he was 6 foot and, 150 pounds with no body fat on him, I'm like, okay, I think I did my job. Okay, he can now fend for himself on that food area. And even now, I am blessed because, Loki, you do have those 15 key items. You will try something. He will, give it that no thank you bite.
Good.
But I want to, as we're, at the halfway point of this episode, talk about the no thank you bite.
Oh, yeah.
That can be reverse. It can have a very negative connotation, okay? Because remember that you want new experiences to have a great,
First impression.
yes.
Yeah.
You don't want the child to be, I'm going to hold you down and you're going to eat this green bean. Again, raised in a different generation.
Yeah.
My grandmother Furr was an advocate of you eat what is put in front of you and you do not leave the table until the plate is finished. I had a nemesis and it's called steamed carrots. For me, steamed carrots had the same reaction as the yogurt as an adult. But I was a child. And so, I was sneaky. I would put all the carrots in my mouth, chew them up, and be like, I got to go to the bathroom. The funny thing was I'd get to the bathroom and spit the carrots out and I'd come back and my grandmother was on it because there'd be more carrots on my plate. Tried it. You couldn't feed them to the dog. You couldn't put them in the napkin. I think I have tried everything. And I just got to the point that I would, and I'm not joking this, and I'm sharing this because our kids do this because they learn about the things, how to manipulate mom and dad. They become master manipulators.
Oh, yeah.
I would end up putting the steamed carrot in my mouth, and they were the slices. And, and when you touched them, they would just go, I'd put one piece at a time, and I would just swallow it. And I think that's why I can take medicine so easily today because I would put one carrot and just do it, just hold it. I would take my drink and do it until they were all gone.
Oh, my gosh, that's miserable, too.
100% miserable. And guess what? Now I do not eat carrots.
Exactly.
Nope, won't do it. It literally, and we're talking 40 years.
Yep.
It left that I'm like, nope, raw carrots. I will bite into a carrot, crunch carrot. Oh, I love it. But it left such a stigma with me that anytime I hear steamed vegetables, period, I'm like, no, thank you. And it's the texture thing again.
Yeah.
But it's also the trauma response of remembering, that I had to sit there at the table where all my siblings and everything had already left. And I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at these things.
And then it gets cold and even worse.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing you really learn as a child is I'm going to eat what's in front of me, so to avoid getting more put on my plate that I don't want to eat.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then that just sort of
reinforcement.
Then that just sort of, alludes just like there's no choice in the matter. You're doing it out of obligation and not out of actual enjoyment.
Bingo.
Perfect example of negative reinforcement play. You're
yes.
just doing it to avoid the next thing, the next consequence, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
Completely.
So I would like to give a suggestion to our families, and I would love to hear your all's feedback because as a teacher, I see that this method of introducing new food seems to be the best. And it's on the plate as an option. Okay. No stress on it. Okay. And even if you have child that are sensory seekers, don't put it on the plate, but you set it beside them. So if we were sitting here, the four of us, getting ready to have dinner together, and if I wanted Loki to try a piece of watermelon, okay, I would have the tray of watermelon set right in front of him. That way, everyone else, he would see us eating it on our plates with the hope that he would want to try it, but not being forced to try it.
Yeah.
Same way with the child in school. You may try to get them to, I'm going to use green beans because for some reason, and now I'm craving green beans, but green beans. And again, children sometimes are diverse just to the color of the food. But if they see a peer and not a parent eating that food, they will be more apt to try that food.
Yeah, without somebody forcing them to.
Exactly.
Oh, that's like my daughter at daycare. When I see they send us a list of everything that she eats. When I see the things she eats at daycare, I'm like, a bean and cheese burrito. That's really healthy fruit and vegetable. At home, does she eat any of it? Nope. But as well as just my husband, myself and her at daycare, it's all of them sitting at the table, all the little plates, all the little chairs and cups. Yeah, it's definitely the peer models.
Absolutely.
Very helpful.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that I can tell you that if we were to revamp 10 years, going back 10 years, the food program in preschool and kindergarten is so critical. I cannot stress that because as we know, once they get to high school, once they get into elementary,
Then
those food patterns are locked in.
Yeah, they're solidified. They're like quicksand.
Exactly. But
I mean, sorry, it was like quick meld cement or something. Where
Quickcrete.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, where you just spray the bag with water and it locks down as concrete.
Yeah.
So, but that is it.
Well, what you're describing, you're giving them options essentially is what we call a preference assessment, and you can change it every night, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to put some carrots tonight. Next time I'm going to put some bean sprouts. Next time I'm going to put some green beans. And but you're doing it as option. It's funny. It's like you talk to a parent who's dealing with a picky eater. You say, all right, well, let's change the food. What if it was toys? Would you force them to play with a certain toy?
Probably
good.
not.
Exactly.
That's
not,
a
right?
good way to look at it.
If you look at it like I'm just testing preferences. So you do it the same way you do with toys, right? You put an array of toys and you say, okay, what would you like to play with? And they pick one.
Absolutely.
So if you do it with food, hey, here's a plate of food. What do you want to eat? And they choose, and then you're learning what they want.
I love that.
I also want to say I got the perfect example of like a food being there as an option.
Yes.
I remember when we were at Dunkin', we only got glazed donuts.
Yep.
I only ate glazed donuts.
Yes.
And then you just gave me one Boston cream donut.
Yes.
On like the side because it was in the box, right? There was just like one, and it's like, all right, yeah, sure, I'll just put that away for now. And then you gave it to me. I'm like, yeah, sure, it's a donut. What's the worst that could happen? I bite into it, and then they skipped it. Now I always want Boston cream donuts.
Yes. Yes. It's his jam.
It's now your preference.
But it's great that you remembered that because it wasn't something that I forced on you.
Yeah.
And that again, and it ended up being one of his favorites. And that's very huge in our environment because whether that's, and I again want to bring out caregivers because a lot of times we have grandmothers and grandfathers that are raising their grandbabies nowadays. We have great grandparents raising their great grandchildren. We're going back into especially the economy, our environment, the true family coming together to raise the children. So when we look at the family raising our new generation, we have to talk about how did the millennials do it? How did the Gen Xers do it? And what was a requirement? Because what breaks my heart is how many of my high school kids I talk to and they never have family dinner.
Yeah.
They don't sit at the table anymore.
No, but everyone kind of grab and go plate.
Even in our own house. We do that when we have company over. We do that when we have got a special event, but the tradition, if I go back to thinking even about at my grandmother's, or even in my own house, it was no, you came to the dinner table.
Yeah.
And at the dinner table, this is where we had dinner and we talked about our day. but we are on the go. We have both of our parents having to work. We have double, families that are still a new generation of latchkey kids, because it's what is a necessity for the family.
Yeah.
So these little things get lost. So we need to make sure that we find time, just like how they did the resurgence of game night, which is huge. Yeah. We still do family game night. That's very important.
May not be as common, but
correct,
still,
but it's still there.
Interaction.
And it's fun. It's different.
Yes.
And I think, too, when it comes down to it, you just have to model the behavior you want to see.
Absolutely.
If you want your kids to set the table when you eat, you set the table when you eat. If you're okay with them being on their tablet, you can be on your phone. You don't want them on the tablet, put the phone away, which I think we've talked about that at restaurants in a previous episode.
Yeah.
And even with trying new food, too.
I would say picky eaters. If you're a parent and you don't like a certain food, then why force a kid to like a certain food?
Yeah.
Exactly. And pick and choose your battlefield.
Yeah.
Yes, pick and choose.
Oh, my
pick
goodness.
And choose the battles.
We see restaurants, and everyone who's been to a restaurant that's had that child in the corner that's screaming, for us at my table, normally Pat looks at me, Loki looks at me and is like, just leave the kid alone because I want to go over and help, It's natural instinct to be like, the kid's just in crisis. The parents are in crisis. How do we help them out? But it goes back to, don't expect your children to know how to sit in public for you if you're not practicing at home.
Exactly.
Right. I think,
because we have, and I've seen it. I know you have all seen it. I don't even know what word to relate it to, but like we have some people that have, Sundays they go to church and then on Monday they're cussing up a storm. You also see parents that take their kids that don't sit down and eat with them at home.
And then they take them to a restaurant and they think
expect them to be the expectation.
They haven't even they wouldn't even probably teach them about manners or anything like that.
Yeah.
Correct, Loki.
In ABA, we have a common saying, you don't change behavior, you change the environment. You have to change the rules and the setting and the situation if you expect something different.
Exactly. So, moms and dads, caregivers worldwide, look, we're here to help you and your family. Picky eater. Well, why don't we just say that they have different preferences?
Yeah.
We're going to change how we address our children so that we can then not feed to bad programs, but give them a new outlook on how they eat. So, from our couch to yours, come on back for another episode of the Purple Couch Podcast. See you soon.